as well as Mohsen, which is providing free respite care tonight, alhamdulillah. To start off our event, we are going to have a young reciter, Brother Bilal Hassan. He's a student at Nur Hifz Academy, and he's going to be reciting the last 10 ayahs of Surah Al-Kahf.
Assalamu alaikum, my name is Bilal. I'm a student at Nur Hifz Academy. Inshallah, I'll be reciting a few ayahs from Surah Al-Kahf. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أفحسب الذين كفروا أن يتخذوا عبادي من دوني أولياء إنا أعتدنا جهنم للكافرين نزلا قل هل ننبئكم بالأخسرين أعمالا الذين ضل سعيهم في الحياة الدنيا وهم يحسبون أنهم يحسنون صنعا أولئك الذين كفروا بآيات ربهم ولقائه فحبطت أعمالهم فلا نقيم لهم يوم القيامة وزنا ذلك جزاؤهم جهنم بما كفروا واتخذوا آياتي ورسلي هزوا إن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات كانت لهم جنات الفردوس نزلا خالدين فيها لا يبغون عنها حولا قل لو كان البحر مدادا لكلمات ربي لنفد البحر قبل أن تنفد كلمات ربي ولو جئنا بمثله مددا قل إنما أنا بشر مثلكم يوحى إلي أنما إلهكم إله واحد فمن كان يرجو لقاء ربه فليعمل عملا صالحا ولا يشرك بعبادة ربه أحدا. Do the disbelievers think they can simply take my servants as lords instead of me? We have surely prepared hell as an accommodation for the disbelievers. Shall we inform you of who will lose the most deeds? They are those whose efforts are in vain in this worldly life. While they think they are doing good, it is they who reject the signs of their Lord and their meeting with Him, rendering their deeds void, so we will not give their deeds any weight on Judgment Day. That is their reward, hell for their disbelief and mockery of my signs and messengers. Indeed, those who believe and do good will have the gardens of paradise as an accommodation where they will be forever, never desiring anywhere else. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, if the ocean were ink for the writing of words of my Lord, it would certainly run out before the words of my Lord were finished, even if we refilled it with its equal. I am only a man like you, but it has been revealed to me that your God is only one God. So whoever hopes for the meeting with their Lord, let them do good deeds and associate none in the worship of their Lord. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
MashaAllah, takbir. How old are you? 12, MashaAllah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and your family and allow you to guide many, many people through your beautiful recitation. Say Ameen. Ameen, inshallah. Alrighty, so we're gonna start off really quick. Our topic tonight is how we can achieve spiritual, emotional, intellectual, physical, social, and environmental health, right? How do they all work together in harmony to promote a holistic development and make life meaningful in the eyes of the Creator? So what brings our life meaning? And I'm just going to do a really short intro for our speaker really quickly, inshallah. Sheikh Hashim Ahmad, mashallah, he's an American Islamic scholar and teacher, and he holds a degree from Jamia al-Qura in Mecca, as well as a master's in Islamic culture from the University of Sindh in Pakistan. He has also obtained ijazat from many traditional scholars whom he studied with, and in 1985, he was deputed by late Sheikh Abdulaziz bin Baz as a teacher to Jamia al-Ulum al-Islamiyya in Karachi. Many of us are familiar with that. He served at the prestigious institute teaching various Islamic sciences. He went on to teach at various other institutions, and currently Sheikh Hashim serves as the religious director at Dawah in Tustin, California, and as a seminary instructor at IOK, the Institute of Knowledge. If you didn't know, Sheikh Hashim, mashallah, he's a convert to Islam. He spent his youth around the 1960s in pursuit of his musical career, and that was coupled with a passion for a natural, healthy lifestyle, inspired from early childhood by his mother, an accomplished nutritionist and certified organic gardener. During this era, that urge to grow spiritually continued, right? It continued to become more and more predominant until he realized that therein alone lay the secret of true success for man. So therefore, he left America in 1970 in pursuit of this true path of spiritual development and this way to the Creator. And after extensive travel and search, mashallah, he accepted Islam in Ethiopia in 1971, traveled on to Yemen, eventually to Mecca. So without further ado, mashallah, Sheikh Hashim.
So before we get started here, I'd like to know, I did a session here a few months back. How many of you were present in that session? Not many, right? How many were not present? Most of you, okay. So for those who are present, we're going to do a little review, and then for those who were not present, then of course this will be an introduction. So, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. A few words on this series, how it originated and what it's all about. So, after accepting Islam, as our sister has mentioned, back in the early 70s, and previously living a life of the typical or atypical, whatever you like, the Californian sort of hippie revolutionaries sort of that we were back in those days. So among that lifestyle was a very natural and organic sort of way of living, and that was something that we used to hold very dear and held a very large scale of importance. And as mentioned also, since from my childhood, our upbringing was with a natural lifestyle, good organic eating, and healthy lifestyle. So after accepting Islam, seeing that Muslims who are the followers of the ultimate religion, the only religion in the eyes of Islam, Islam, the only acceptable path in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to accept and submit to His system that He has sent. And among that system is in perfect harmony with all things organic to the human being. And so a natural way of living and a healthy way of living is part and parcel. It is intrinsically connected to our religion. Unfortunately, like just about every other aspect of our being, we are, intrinsically and explicitly and intrinsically, disconnected. So there's a disconnect in all of these areas, and among them is the various dimensions of health. So this always used to bother me And then ultimately, I thought that let's try and put together a series of trainings, workshops, retreats, if you will, where we could kind of review a more holistic approach in these various dimensions of human health and see if there's some hands-on sort of the interventions that we can introduce that everybody can easily, pick up and start doing, and in so doing, hopefully, inshallah, improve our lives and improve our overall general health individually in terms of our families, our communities, and globally. And that begins from the micro to the macro, the very innermost of the human being, and then his actions, ultimately the family structure, social connections, and ultimately the environment, which is what we're going to be focusing on this weekend. The sustainability committee, I suppose, that's what they are focusing upon, and that's what we're going to focus on, which is actually, generally in this series, we treat that as the last module, but we'll start with that module in this context, as that's what was requested. So, this is kind of an overview of the whole series, which is basically 6 modules, and the first thing we need to understand is why am I here? And not only why am I here in the room, but why am I here in the universe? Why has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created me? What's my purpose of life? This sounds like a very simple question, but it's a very complex question in an environment where we don't have answers. Moreover, if we don't have guidance from the Creator who has created us and created us for a purpose, it is impossible for us to identify a purpose. This is amazing. Now, most of you, how many of you were born in houses or families that were not Muslim, that were not Islamic? Well, so this is going to be something strange, perhaps, to most of you, because you are pretty much, from day one, adhan in the ear, iqamah in the other ear, and we start with Bismillah. So that's very natural to you. But suppose you never heard the name Allah. Suppose you never heard the Shahada. Suppose you never saw Salah. Suppose you never heard of Quran or read it. And you are to be asked, what's your purpose of life? Dilemma. Unanswerable, unfathomable dilemma. And therefore, if you go, and this is something I've been doing since I was a child, actually, what's the purpose of life? Why are we here? Because I grew up in a family, not only I didn't grow up in, my childhood was not in a Muslim household, but moreover, our household was a very staunch atheistic household. In other words, religion is the worst thing on the planet, and that's where all the problems of the world were coming from religion. And you've heard that, floating about, these days. It's quite common to hear. So that's the kind of environment that I grew up in. But as I grew up and looking around and seeing the universe, look, there's a universe, there's a huge creation. Without a creator, it's impossible. In any case, so without guidance from the Creator, answering this question is actually impossible. And therefore, after I became a Muslim, then I asked some of my family members, I came back from America, and then I was introducing my new religion to them. And so I asked some of my family, what's your purpose of life? The same question. And, some of my cousins were at that point, students at Harvard and MIT and, the Ivy League schools of the country, and learning ostensibly very, very lofty things. However, what's the purpose of your life? No clue. To the extent that you'll find people, if you ask them, what's the purpose of life? They'll say, there's no purpose. We're just here. So just enjoy it, Live life to the fullest. How many people have heard that? Live life to the fullest. What do you mean by that? In other words, fulfill my passions, desires to the max. And then what? No clue. Well, then what? Then there's death, and then there's grave, and then there's questions. Who was your Lord? What was your deen? Who was your prophet? What system did you follow? Clueless, munkar and nakir, with this terrible punishment that's going to be inflicted, and that's the beginning, and it goes on forever and ever and ever and ever. So it's extremely critical. It is the most critical thing to understand and identify this purpose. Why are we here? If we understand why we're here, if we have a purpose, that gives us direction. And probably you've heard the very common usage of vision and mission, and everyone has a vision and mission. Corporations generally do, businesses usually do, human beings generally don't. Does that surprise you? Should. If we go into any company here in Silicon Valley, if we go into any company, what's your vision and mission statement? They've got this, which people don't really know what it is, but they figured it out one day, and it's a good marketing slogan, and so they, What's your vision? Oh, okay, can you get that document? Let's see what that says. Yeah, our directors, we came up with that 10 years ago or so. So the company ostensibly has some kind of vision or mission, and some of them actually have a culture based on that. However, if you ask the individual working in the company, what's your personal vision in life? What do you mean? So this is the dilemma. So we need to get this right. Why are we here in the world? And for most of us, with very few exceptions probably, from the day one of our educational process until the end of it, until actually to the end of most of our lives, the whole purpose seems to be filling our pockets and building up a physical existence around us, which we all know that we're going to leave tomorrow, if not today. Since we know that this life is only a life of what? 50, 60, 70, max 100 years. The day of judgment being a period of, the day of judgment, the day of reckoning, 50,000 years. One day. And that's not the whole story. That's just the day of reckoning. One day, 50,000 years, and then after that, eternity, forever. Not a million, not a billion, not a trillion, not quadrillions, forever and ever and ever. Khalidin fiha. We just heard. That's the life that we're supposed to be preparing for. That's why we're here. We are here to prepare for that life. We go to the school, we go to the university, we go to the education process to prepare for a career. Unfortunately, that career is very short-sighted. When I see these huge corporations, I say, well, I would love to be the CEO of this corporation because you don't have a long-term vision. It's very important for business to have a long-term vision, yeah? It's a very short vision. Whatever that vision may be, it's up to the time of death. It's up to the time of the grave. And after that, what? No vision whatsoever. So we as Muslims, the first thing that we have to come to grips with is why are we here? What is our purpose of life? What are we trying to achieve? For that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us very clearly. And most of us know that. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وما خلقت الجن والإنس إلا ليعبدون. And I have created not the jinn and the mankind except for إلا ليعبدون. And we have to understand this, and you cannot really translate this in English. It doesn't work. It doesn't really. Number one, it's a different language, and above and beyond all of that, it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's speech. And so no human being can, equal or match or translate the speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we will try as far as possible. That's why the definition of tafsir is to try and understand and elucidate upon the meanings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has within His kalam, to the extent, as we say, that taqat al-bashariyah, to the extent that humans are possible. Humans are humans, Allah is Allah. So basically, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us to live a life of servitude, of worship, of submission, of acting like slaves that we are, that we were intended to be of our master, of our creator. And by the way, what is a slave? This has a lot of taboo around it, right? You know, but we are supposed to be slaves. Slaves of creation is ultimate humility. Slavery to the Creator is ultimate sanctity and elevation. Subhanallah asra bi abdihi. Exalted is he who, and most exalted, or perhaps the most auspicious maqam or station, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is unique to him, unlike any other prophet. He was called by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's presence, above and beyond the seven skies. Such a position and station. And in that regard, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala names his prophet not by his name, not by the prophet, not by the Nabi, not by the Rasul. Subhanallah asra bi abdi, who has risen and brought, up to his presence, his slave. That's why we say, وَأَشْهَدُ أَنَّ مُحَمَّدًا, first of all, Abduhu wa Rasuluhu. A slave of Allah, and then his messenger. And what is the message? A messenger comes with a message. What is the message? How to live the life of the slave of Allah. That's the message. And so this whole deen of ours is to instruct us, and to nurture us, and to mentor us as to how we become the slaves of Allah that are going to be accepted. And if we live a life of slavery of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this life, then we'll live the life of free men and women forever and ever. Whatever our desires, whatever our fancies, it will all be fulfilled totally. Beyond expectation. We have the rating. Meets expectation, below expectation, above expectation, unlimitedly beyond expectation. أعدت لعبادي الصالحين في الجنة ما لا عين رأت ولا أذن سمعت ولا خطر على قلب بشر. Prophet mentions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that I have prepared for my faithful servants, my faithful slaves in paradise that which no eye has seen, no ear has heard, and never, came into the wildest fancies of anyone's imagination. Way beyond. Unmeasurably beyond anyone's expectation. Even the names of the things in paradise are simply names that we can relate to. Reality, as Abdullah ibn Abbas, he says, the only correlation between the names of the things in paradise and their realities is the word. Otherwise, the reality is beyond human comprehension. That's what's worth living for. That's what's worth dying for. Therefore, and the door towards that life and that existence is death, which is what we're supposed to be preparing for, which everyone doesn't want to talk about. We need to think about death, incessantly. Incessantly remember that which is going to destroy all pleasures of the world. Death. Death is the day worth living for. That's the day that we're preparing for. And in so doing, it will be for such a person a tuhfa. It will be a gift. That's why it's mentioned, death is the gift of the person of Iman. This is the day he's waiting for. This is the day he will remove the shackles of the worldly trials and tribulations, the do's and the don'ts and restrictions, and now he will go towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's pleasure and total freedom. So that's the day that we're supposed to be preparing for. And this life of Islam is the life that is preparing us for that grand, success. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all. So ubudiyah, that's what we were created for. Ilani ya'budun, for this concept of ubudiyah, which is basically Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's obedience and servitude out of his love and reverence. Out of his love and reverence. And what is you fear? You obey someone because they have clout. You fear somebody with a gun pointed at your head and you do what you're told. Not out of love and but out of fear. mere fear. We should become these obedient slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, recognizing the fact that He is the one who has created us out of nothing. Otherwise, we wouldn't even have existed. Our existence is not deserved. None of us can claim, I deserve to exist. Can any of us claim for that? Did any of us petition for it? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in His mercy, He brought us into existence. And He gave us the ability and the possibility of having an existence, of sublime existence forever and ever. And for that, He has provided everything necessary. So much above and beyond what is in fact necessary. The various things, the various nourishments that we have, the various foods that we eat, the various houses that we live in, the modes of transportation, family, children, relatives, society, etc., etc., etc. When during the ni'matullah, try to count the ni'mat of Allah, it is impossible. Impossible. So, looking about us and reflecting about the ni'mat, the blessings and the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without us and within us. وَفِي أَنفُسِكُمْ أَفَلَا تُبْصِرُونَ. How many cells in the body? 60 to 90 trillion cells in your body. Have you created any single one of them? Are you nourishing any single one of them? And yet we hear, it's my body, I can do what I want. You heard that one? You haven't heard that one? Huh? It's my body, do with it what I want. Your body, did you create it? Do you sustain it? Did you bring it into existence? Will you take it out of existence? Absolutely not. So it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who has, created us and given us everything and beyond, everything. We won't be able to count those blessings. So that is the life that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us to live. So for that we have 3 simple terms that we have to understand properly. We all know them, but we have to ensure that we understand exactly what they mean. When we say Islam, what is Islam? Certain people say, what are you? I'm a Muslim. What's your religion? Islam. What is that? Well, it's my parents were, my grandparents were. So that's what I am. That's not how it works. Islam is not a hereditary, not a hereditary adjective. It is a state of mind and heart. It is submission. Islam means submission to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, knowingly, consciously, intentionally. And so, what is a Muslim? Muslim is the active participle, the one who submits. So if we are submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, first of all, we know what Allah wants from us and we try to submit to that, we try to apply that. And we're actually a Muslim because this is an active part. He's actively partaking in submission. Okay? Last of all, deen. What is your deen? Deen is not deen. What is deen? Deen is the total system of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's submission. The total system, which means 7, 24, 365. Every moment of our existence, there is an order of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that is directed towards us to identify what Allah wants from me at this moment and apply it. That is what deen shows us, and that's what deen teaches us, and that's why we need to know it, because our success in every endeavor of human existence depends upon that. So our religion is submission to that, to understand what that is, and a Muslim is the one who tries to identify that and do it. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us all among them. Say Ameen. Ameen. And so therefore the scope of deen, it's all activities of life, all rules of life. It's not like, okay, this is deen and this is dunya. In the masjid, mashallah, my long garment and my imamah and my Allahu Akbar, subhanallah, alhamdulillah. And then when I go to my office, I go to the market, I go to the playground. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah Islam. Now I'm a US citizen an employee of such and such, and all of that is, I've left that. It's like, the snake that sheds his skin, the skin is left there, and another entity altogether. This is not the case. This is not the case of a real Muslim. A real Muslim is a Muslim all the time, every moment, right? What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala want from me in the masjid? What does He want from me in the market? What does He want from me in my house? What does He want when I'm driving down the street? When I'm going to purchase things, in the grocery store, when I'm visiting people, people are visiting me, whatever I'm doing, eating, sleeping, working, living, playing, whatever I'm doing, there's an order, there's a way, there's a system. And if we do so, then every action that we're doing is also equates to an act of obedience, which means it's an act of worship. Therefore, amazingly, the Prophet says that, you see, the husband lifts a morsel and places it into the mouth of his wife lovingly. That's an act of worship. And even going beyond that, in relationships, for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's pleasure, following His orders, it's all considered worship. Taking a morsel and eating, going to sleep. Even after eating and drinking, obviously, it needs to be excreted. Even that action can be an act of worship. With intention, following of Sharia, and applying Sunnah as applicable. Everything that we do can be an act of worship. Everything that we do can be a means of getting closer to Allah and being a higher status in terms of our slavery and our obedience to Allah. So for that we have to know, we have to learn, and then we have to try and implement. So all activities of life, all rules of life, balanced, however, that's the tricky part. So what is deen then? And in other words, it's operational application of ubudiyah, of servitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all tawfiq. And we have another, we don't have time to do this exercise, but in our first module, inshallah, we'll do an exercise where we look at the whole process of, the unfolding of the tree of all of the aspects of ubudiyah in the life of a Muslim, and how the process takes place from the beginning to the end. And inshallah, in our first module, hopefully we'll do that at another point in time here, inshallah. And this is a very important exercise, and it shows us how deen actually, the development of deen and the love for deen and the ability to apply deen actually takes place into our life through the medium of dawah, ta'aleem, and tarbiyah. So inshallah, hopefully in the session to come, we'll take more time and explain that in detail. So, summary, the purpose of our life is ubudiyah. That's why we're here, to live a life of servitude. And then the object, so if we do that, object meaning, if we do that, what's in it for us? We are slaves for Allah, then what Allah is going to do for us, He's going to give us His pleasure, and He's going to place us into paradise. Ya ayyatuha an-nafs al-mutma'inna, O you soul of peace, irji'i ila rabbiki radiyatan mardiyah, return to your Lord pleased and pleasing to Him, Azza wa Jal. Fadkhuli fi ibadi, enter among my who? Slaves. Paradise, only slaves are going to paradise. There was a fellow by the name of Bishr al-Harith, who was a very wealthy and affluent person, probably in Baghdad. And like affluent generally tend to be, inna al-insan al-yatgha an ra'ahu istaghna. Usually when we have plenty of wherewithal, okay, I'm free of need, even from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I do what I want. So this fellow, he used to have these parties nightly, pretty much. There'd be music, and dancing girls, and singing, and wine, and intoxicants and all that. And it was a grand affair. So one night, while this was all going on, a knock came on the door. So a female servant went to the door and opened the door, and there was an old man. And he asked this servant, Is your master a free man or is he a slave? She said, he's a free man. He said, yeah, that's what I thought. That's why I see him doing what he's doing. And he left, this fellow. Now, Bishop al-Harith was kind of, observing that something was going on. Someone came to the door and there was a discussion. So he went to his servant and said, what was that all about? So she told him the whole story that this was over. He asked this question. What was the question? Is your master a free man or is he a slave? So what did you say? I said, he's a free man. So somehow it just kind of struck him. So he ran out of the house barefoot, looking for this guy. So finally he finds him in one of the alleyways and he finally says, hey, what did you say to my servant? And then he related the whole thing. Are you a slave? Or are you a free man? She said, you're a free man. I said, yes, that's why I see him doing what he's doing. And that just struck him in the heart. And he fell down on the road in prostration, in sajda. And he said, La ya Rabbi bal'abd, La ya Rabbi bal'abd. He said, no, my Lord, I am a slave. And his life was transformed. One sentence from the friends of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, coupled with the basis, the divine decree, which I thought was time immemorial. So the tawfiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala transformed this apparently total fasiq into the wali of Allah. And thereafter, he became one of the great sheikhs and one of the great mentors of Islam that are known as Bishr al-Hafi. Bishr al-Hafi. Hafi means the barefooted one. Because his Torah took place while he was barefoot, so that remained his one of the great mentors of the Ummah. So, فَادْخُلِي فِي عِبَادِي. Enter into the company of my former slaves who have emancipated in paradise and now they're free for whatever they desire, whatever their souls desire. وَادْخُلِي جَنَّتِي. Enter into my paradise. So that's what we're living for. We're living for that day. We're living for this announcement. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all tawfiq. So to do that, we need to live a healthy life. So before we go into this, think about it. So to live a life of servitude, to live a life of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, live a life of service to Allah and His creation, would that demand from us health, vitality, strength? Or if we're sickly, weak, useless, incapacitated, are we going to be able to live that kind of lifestyle and carry that portfolio? What do you think? We're thinking about it, right? Would it be possible? It'll be very difficult, to say the least, right? At least, I don't think anyone would disagree that if we are finding ourselves with a lot of vitality and vigor and strength in various dimensions, all dimensions possible, then it's going to be much easier with the tawfiq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course. So we call this series the Healthy Meaningful Living, HML. Everything has an abbreviation. Even all our masjids here, that's striking, because I was out of the country for many decades and coming back, we used to have names for masjids, Masjid Nur, Masjid Fulan, and now it's ICUGYXY, whatever, like something out of, Well, anyway, so abbreviations, no harm in that. But, so simply from that standpoint, we say HML, Healthy Meaningful Living. So what do these three elements imply? So we can think about that. We think about healthy. Like we can actually do that. What do you think? We think of healthy. What do you all think about? I say, Faran, somebody's healthy. What comes to mind?
They eat well.
Huh?
They eat well.
They eat well. Yeah, that's usually what we think about. Okay, that's good. What else?
Active lifestyle.
Excuse me?
Active lifestyle.
Active lifestyle, good. What else?
Exercise.
Exercise, good. What else?
Fruits and vegetables.
Huh?
Fruits and vegetables. Fruits and vegetables.
Fruits and vegetables. Well, that adds to being healthy, yeah. But what about this person? I mean, we think he's a healthy person. So what kind of person are we talking about? Huh?
Is not sick. Healthy, not sick.
Not sick.
He's healthy.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
not fit.
Discipline.
He is fit. Huh?
Not sick.
Discipline.
He's not sick. Oh, okay. Not sick. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, in fact. I can't, what is it?
Not injured.
Not injured. Okay, we're all talking pretty much about physical health, right? What about spiritual health? Suppose he's got, like these gyms really get, I really am not a big fan of gyms. In fact, I broke my shoulder last year or so. And so I wanted to get, sort of back into shape. So I signed up for the gym. It was the worst thing I ever did. And you walk into these places, and I mean, it is, my God, it's like qiyamah, And then, I tried to get my money. I said, look, I can't deal with this environment. I said, please, can I want to opt out. You signed a 6 months contract. You're stuck. I said, well, just take it and do what you want. And this is too much for me. So we don't necessarily need to expose ourselves to these kind of environments, but so what do we have here? Well, now this thing of being physically, beautiful, because it's just an ego thing, and generates to attract the opposite sex, and that's about it. But that's not the kind of physical. We also are interested in physical health, not for those reasons. By intention. That's the main thing, right? So we want to be physically, we want to be physically fit to live a life of ubudiyah, that we can offer long rakats of salat, that we can fast properly, we can go for hajj and umrah. We used to go on foot. I mean, even in my time when I was young, that's how we used to go. I think many people do that anymore. And serving humanity, one of the great forms of worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is serve his creation. And how are we going to serve the creation? We're ourselves need to be served. So, spiritual health, physical health, mental health. For mental unhealthy, the whole thing just collapses, right? Intellectual health. We're constantly, gaining insight and gaining knowledge, gaining understanding. It's a constant process. Social health, all of our social interactions, those need to be healthy. And then ultimately, a healthy environment to live in, which is what we're going to be focusing on, inshallah, in this series, this weekend, tomorrow. So all of these elements come to play. But the most critical of all of those is a life of iman and amal salih. That's really where health exists. And amal salih min dhakarin aw untha wa huwa mu'min falannuhyiyannahu hayatan tayyibah. So the people who work righteousness, whether they're man or woman, while being a believer, the condition of having iman, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will enliven them with a blessed, beautiful, and pure life. Hayat al-tayyibah, beautiful life. That's for who? For the people of iman and amal. And reward them, whether they be male or female, by the measure of the best of what they have been endeavoring therein, by the best actions of our way. The poor and the deficit, all this one just sort of will overlook. Best of what one has done, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will look kindly towards that and reward accordingly and manifoldly more. So, meaningful is basically a clear purpose of existence, which is what we talked about. Why am I here? What's my purpose of life? We're very clear about that. We wake up in the morning, clear about that. We go through the day, clear about that. We go to sleep, clear about that. And every day, hasibu qabla an tuhasabu, as it said. Take account of yourselves before you take an account of. Take account of yourselves before you're taken account of. So every day, just like the shopkeeper, every day when he closes his shop, take an inventory. What did we sell? What remains? How much profit margin do we make? So every day, what profit did we make in the investment of our time and our actions? Or what deficit do we find ourselves falling into? So every day that we should be taking a clear account of ourselves. Allah will give us all fulfilled. So clear purpose of our existence and living for that. So that's a meaningful life. And a healthy life, المؤمن القوي خير وأحب إلى الله من المؤمن الضعيف. Nabi alayhi says, the strong believer is more virtuous and more beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what constitutes a mu'min al-qawi, a strong mu'min, a strong believer? So the same question I generally ask, when people say this, they say that, but actually, in reality, it's Nabi didn't define what type of strength he meant. In other words, every kind of strength that would assist in that meaning. Then a Muslim is concerned about that kind of strength. Spiritual, emotional, intellectual, physical, social, strong determination, strong intentions, a strong sense of vision and mission, strong social ties, so all types of strength that are going to help him in this context. So it's more virtuous, more beloved to Allah than a weak believer. And Iman in itself is khair, so we have a little of it or a lot of it. Strong or weak, Iman is khair. But of course, one who is stronger is going to be more khair. So holistic health is basically looks like this. Kind of very sort of general overview. Rouhani health, we talked about that, and that is the driver of the whole system. That's the essence. The essence of the human being. This is war. When you die, what happens? You know, we say in Arabic, also in Urdu, for those people that are very similar, we say, he is gone and left towards Allah's mercy. In Urdu, they say, same thing. But the fact of the matter is that apparently nothing has gone anywhere. Human body is there. Head is there, heart is there, brain is there, eyes, limbs, everything is there. Nothing physically seems to have gone anywhere. But yet the person is gone. He's left. What is left? Not his physical existence, his spiritual existence, his ruh. That's the essence of the human being, which we know very little of, and we have little attention towards, particularly in this day and age. Totally unaware. But that is the basis, that is the life of the human being, is his ruh. And so this strong ruh and this healthy ruh, that's the crux, that's the pivotal dimension of the whole equation. For spiritually strong, then everything else is going to be impacted positively. We can make up for other areas of weakness, but you can never know the other areas can make up for that weakness. So that's the most critical, and that's where we generally begin in the series. Then intellectual, aqlani, intellectual strength. And why did Allah want to give us intelligence and such a strong intelligence, higher than any of the rest of this creation? For what purpose? And so we need to understand that. Why? So we can come up with more novel ways of producing consumer items and have more consumption. Seems to be that that's what people understand this day and age. When you go into a supermarket, what do you see? We see the fruit of human intellect in the 21st century. Thousands of items. You need, for example, salt. Salt is a very simple item. You go into the grocery store and you get 300 different types of salt. And everyone has its own marketing, gimmick to try and get you to buy this one. Millions of items, This is where our intellect was focused on. Because it's all about this world. They know the physical world, the existence of the world up to the time of death, and after death, no clue, no concern, no thought. Disaster. It's a total disaster. And therefore we find everything in the world today is crumbling. It's sounded if you khusr. If you remember last time I was here, we had a whole khutbah on that in Cuba. So Surah Al-Asr just explains the whole thing. We're going to be in loss regardless. If we don't have Iman, Amal Salih, and strive to establish that. So, intellectual health as well. Why we have intellect, and using it properly and developing it properly. Allah believes it wants. So that's a whole area that we need to look at. So one module is there. Jismani, physical also, physical health for the very purpose of being able to facilitate us, make it easier for us, and make it more dynamically, impactful, the way that we live a life of ubudiyah with good physical health. So we're concerned about that. Islam is concerned about that. Nafsani, emotional health, obviously, needless to say. And what's the state of most people's emotional health these days? It's a shambles. And then going to the more macro, ijtimai, social, the various constructs that we have, social interactions that we have with every people, with every type of person that we are in contact with and we interact with, be it close relatives, far relatives, Muslims, non-Muslims, whatever the case may be. And then ultimately, environmental health. Environment, the ultimate environment, which is not simply the physical environment, also the ethical, the moral, the spiritual, every aspect of the environment, which is what we're going to be focusing on, inshallah, tomorrow. So kind of an overview of all of these different modules, what we would like to look into. So, first of all, the basis of the Ruhani health is Iman. What's its importance? What's the impact that Iman has on both the worlds, this world and the next? What's its definition? What's its reality? And once we know that, how do we build it? How do we strengthen it? How do we protect our Iman, the most valuable position that we have? And the actions, what we call Ruhani A'mal, the A'mal that develop and strengthen the soul. And in so doing, facilitate us to live the life of servitude, or ubudiyah that we've been created to live. Salat, Quran, dhikr of Allah, Salat ala Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, istighfar, tawbah, fikr of death, dua, these are the a'mal. So we actually train in these a'mal. We need to practice them. How do we get real life into this, quality into these actions? So we take each one of these and we work on them and we try and develop them into a higher levels of acceptability and focus, khushu' and hudur and connection, concentration within these actions towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there's theory involved and also practical exercises. Here we have slide got corrupted here. So here are the physical health theory and practicals. So what does the Quran, Sunnah, and view of ulama and specialists say? Does Islam care about physical health? Yes, it does. And so there's three areas that we're going to look into in terms of physical health. One is movement and rest. Exercise, if you will, movement. Just to give you an example, Nabi alayhi salatu wasalam says that we have 360 joints in the body. And every day that the sun comes up, we are required to pay sadaqah in gratitude for these joints in our body. Just suppose this one joint didn't work in your right hand. How would that impact your life? Ask the person who's got arthritis and their knees don't function. And there's reasons also why a lot of knees don't function these days. Now we have a lot of chairmen in the masjids. There must be a lot of board with many directors because everyone has become a chairman. Now, 30, 40, 50 years ago, you never would see a single chair in the masjid. I became Muslim, and then for decades, there was no such thing as a chair in the masjid. If somebody was really, really, really incapacitated, they used to be placed in the saf and they would sit if they couldn't stand. But if they couldn't stand it by any means, they could get up and down. They would, And actually, standing is a fard in salah. Ruku' and sajda, placing your head up, that's fard. Unless we really, really have a strong excuse. And now it seems that people just, I'm not feeling good today. I'm praying in the chair. So we don't want to get too far into that, but the point in case is that we are really in bad shape. We never used to see chairs. Now we see another 1, 2, 3, 10. Now we have whole lines of chairs. Do we really need to have such poor physical health? No, we don't. But we don't have movement. We don't have. So this hadith says we need to spend sadaqah for every one of these joints. So subhanAllah, suppose we had to pay $1 per joint every day, $360 a day. For most of us, that would be pretty tough. But Islam says, well, it's much easier than that. One tasbih, it's a sadaqah. One alhamdulillah, say that, it's a sadaqah. Smiling, to someone nicely, sadaqah, speaking to someone nicely, helping someone in something, that's a sadaqah. If you just offer 2 rakats in the beginning of the day, salat al-duha, that's going to cover the whole 360. So anyway, but the point in case here is, if we have all these 360 joints, have we been created to sit behind desks and behind these computers all day long? Is that what Allah designed us for? We've been designed for movement, action. So we look at that, in detail. Movement and rest. Rest also is important. Action is important. Movement is important. Rest is important. Nourishment and hunger. Hunger is important. We're supposed to be hungry much more than we're supposed to be full. People are dying of overeating. We're not dying of starvation. It's very difficult to die of starvation, by the way. It will take you months without food, period, to die of starvation. We are dying of overeating. That's what we're dying. And wrong eating. That's more of the cause than anything else. So we look at that, very closely. And cure and prevention. Cure is better than prevention is better than cure. So if we can live, we're going to save ourselves from much of the travail of cure. And exercises that we can do and practical plans that we can chalk out for ourselves. So in that module, that's what we cover. And hopefully we'll get an opportunity to do that with you all inshallah as well. And then intellectual health, which we're going to be, we have a focus group that we're going to be doing that inshallah on Sunday. However, basically, when we look at this is why we have intelligence, I mentioned. Why do we have knowledge? So first of all, to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like no other creation. Why do we have intelligence that no other creation has? Because we're supposed to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, number one, primarily, more and better and a deeper understanding than any of the creation. And that's the first tier of knowledge, knowledge about Allah. That's the first tier of knowledge, which most of us are quite, either we're deficient or we have no clue, many of us. Allah help us, so we need to rectify that. Knowledge, second tier of knowledge is the knowledge of command. After knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then knowing how to live a life of service to Him. Sharia, Sunnah, learning about these things. And then lastly, physical support systems to facilitate the worship of Allah. In other words, our physical existence. So our jobs and our professions are, that we attain are most important aspects of our life. These are only to support our physical existence so that we can live the life of Ubudiyah, in a perhaps a more easy way, with more comfort and with more ease, perhaps more efficiently. So our jobs and our professions, but nevertheless, they are to be done with excellence. Everything that we do should be done with excellence. So we look at that as well. So what is our priorities? We need to perhaps review that and revisit our priorities in life, perhaps reorganize them, and then chalk out a plan to realize those. And so that's what we look at in that. So a gap analysis of those 3 tiers and making a plan for the rectification. Emotional health, theory and practicals, again, human health, domains of happiness. Where is happiness of a human being, by the way? And even the question of, is that why we're here, to live a life of happiness? Is that the whole thing? And in any case, happiness, where does it come from? Maybe not where we think. And as a matter of fact, definitely not what most people think. Human cognition and thinking, the way that we think about things, the way that we perceive things. Perhaps we're skewed in the way that we perceive things for whatever reasons. We need to rectify that. So how can we easily, or in a practical way, start start that rectification. Emotional intelligence, to understand my own emotions and understand other people's and deal with one another in an appropriate fashion. Very logical, very simple, but very important. And if it's not applied, it's a disaster. The nafs, behavioral training. This nafs, amarat al-bisu, that is always inviting us towards evil and wrong. We need to train it. How do we do that? So we start looking at that as well. Relationships and empathy. How do we relate? Showing empathy to one another. It's a cold world out there now. The world of 21st century capitalism is not a warm existence. So we need to warm up that, with the empathy of Islam. So how do we do that? And then social health. We look at amazing engineering of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in developing the social systems that human beings live. Look at us. We don't live like the animals. We have a unique, intricacy in the social setup that we have. So first of all, we stand back and marvel at that. We just take it for granted. We need to stand back and marvel at things. Awe, as they say, The chain of subordination, the principles of justice, that seems to have lost from the world now. Everybody's the boss. Nobody wants to be the subordinate. There's a hierarchy in Islam. It starts with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and it goes down, And there's purpose in that hierarchy. And someone being in terms of administration of affairs doesn't necessarily mean that somebody is in a higher position in terms of administration of affairs, in terms of their proximity with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A person who sweeps the street could be that wali of Allah, that friend of Allah, that when he says, oh Allah, do this, Allah does so. As Hadith mentions. Nevertheless, as Islam is a system, also hierarchy in society as a system, and that hierarchy is parents, children, subordinate, etc., etc. So we need to understand that from an Islamic perspective. Social relationship constructors and destructors. Simple things that we do destroy relationships. Simple things we can do, which Islam advises towards, can develop relationships. We need to learn that. Digital addiction, dilemma of the 21st century, unprecedented in human history. How do we deal with that? So we look at that and we try and come up with interventions and a practical way of minimizing, the impact of that, mitigating, as it were. The specific social relations, rights and challenges, husband and wife, parents and children, neighbors, relationships, Muslims, non-Muslims, employer, employees, all of these are various social constructs which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us instructions. And He has tested us and is trying us in our relationships with one another. That's half of our deen. To see which of you will be the best in action in our relationship with Allah and with our relationship with others. So each one of these constructs has rights. It also has its own particular challenges. So we look into that. And then ultimately, and that's what we're going to be focusing tomorrow, which generally we use to take it 2-3 days, but we'll have a sort of condensed version of this tomorrow, inshallah. We invite everybody to join. What we're going to cover is, first of all, dimensions of environment. When we say environment, the environmentalists, the physical things that we can see. There's more to the environment than that. That is part of the environment, no doubt, and we also need to be concerned therein. But there's also spiritual environment. There's moral, ethical environment. So, looking at those dimensions. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's vice regency of the earth and its implications. Inni ja'il fil ardi khalifa. I have created a khalifa, a vice regent for the earth. So if Allah has made us vice regents of the earth, in the earth, upon the earth, then also the earth, we're responsible for it as well, is it not? And again, we as Muslims tend to be the last people concerned with this. We should be in the forefront of that. So we're going to look into that in detail tomorrow, inshallah. Practical steps in improving the environment. Okay, that's, a mega issue. That's a government issue. What am I going to do, me as an individual? There's a lot that you can do. How many of us make wudu every day? Alhamdulillah, everybody, right? How many times a day? At least 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe even more. How much water do you use doing it? Did you ever think about that? No clue. I'll give you a clue. Go home tonight, or try this tomorrow. When you're making your wudu, try and put some vessel, put some like a bucket or a pitcher or something under the tap. When you turn on the tap and make your wudu. Make your wudu and let the excess water go into that vessel. See how much water you're using. And actually we're going to do this actually. If we have time, we'll do it tomorrow. So we'll see that generally what happens is somebody's, they turn on the water full blast and they're making their wudu and this bucket fills up. Sometimes, it's 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 gallons of water. Okay, then we give the individual, maybe 2 cups of water, like 500, half of, we have it in Pakistan, we have these, we have here also, small water bottles. So we give somebody a small water bottle and make wudu with this. And actually, in the old days in Hajj, that's what you start to do. To find water in Hajj was like a big issue. Sometimes you don't find it at all. So you find people in Hajj, they're just taking very little water. So, and we don't tell them how to do it, but they figure it out. Human beings got gray matter, use it. So they, have to be very frugal. And so, amazingly, I'm able to make wudu with a half a liter of water. And that's what we're supposed to do. Right? So, if I can make wudu with a half liter of water, and I, on the other hand, in reality, functionally, I'm wasting a gallon or 2 or 3 every wudu, times the number of people in this room only, how many gallons have been wasted daily? And we're complaining about, our reservoirs are drying up, and the washing of our car becomes fardine. Car washing becomes fard, like we have to wash. Who said you have to wash? And here in America, it's not as bad. In Pakistan, it's really bad. Every rid of the car, especially if you have wherewithal, you have to wash the car every day, which means about 2-3 buckets of water every day. You got 25 million people in Karachi. Suppose half of them only have a car and half of them are using this. How much water is being wasted every day? And we say, we are water, challenged. We're not water challenged, we're challenging the water. That's what's happening. We are wasting the resources. People say, we don't have enough resources to support 8, 9, 10 billion people. There's plenty of resources for everybody. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has unlimited resources. But when one person is using the resources of 10,000, then yes, it's not going to work. And that's what we're doing. So we are wasting the resources that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is the individual can have a huge impact. If all of us, would start, becoming cognizant of the amount of water that we use, the amount of energy that we use, the amount of waste, that we, perpetuate, and things of this nature, which is what we're going to be looking at practically on, see ways that we can practically, as individuals, as families, as communities, have a very heavy impact. We don't have to wait, not particularly in Pakistan. I don't know how many people from Pakistan? Yeah. So anyone from Pakistan knows that the government doesn't do anything there. The people do everything. Anything that happens, the people do it. Right? So people can do things. Individuals can do, families can do, communities can do. And so we can all do things. And then, an introduction to permaculture and an eco-friendly society. How many people have heard the term permaculture? Alhamdulillah, all the women, no men. Yeah, one of our brothers. Our ladies are usually well ahead of everybody. So here's your homework, everybody. Take out your phones right now. Usually I don't allow people to take out their phones in these things. I want everyone to take out your phone, punch in this permaculture. I want you to just kind of see what that's all about. But this is a system that is, it's a very natural system. And this movement is around the world now. My mother is also a permaculturist. Make dua for my mother, by the way. She's 94 years old, as I mentioned. She was, our from childhood influence had put us on these lines, and she's still not a Muslim. We adore her that she accepts Islam. She just recently had a heart attack, and she's now just recovering from that. And we just hope that Allah gives her, the gift of Iman before she leaves the world, so everyone can be interested. She's also a permaculturist. So, and the chief, or you could say the Sheikh of Tariqah, as it were, the head of the most prolific of the leaders of this movement happens to be a Muslim also, by the way, in Australia. And so this is a very practical way to bring the earth back into sustainability. And so I would like you to all look up this word permaculture, look it up. And you might look at Jeff Lawton, who is better known as Jamal Ad-Din. He's a, like myself, a convert Muslim. He's also my teacher. I took a course from him in permaculture design. And he's got his center in Australia called Zaytuna, by the way. Yeah. His wife is from Jordan, and they have a wonderful initiative in the, in that Dead Sea Valley, which they call greening the desert. So it's a very practical thing. So there's practical things that we can do, and therefore we talk about this, we introduce this system because it's a very practical and well mapped out and system that we can apply, inshallah. So this is basically what we're going to be looking at, from unsustainable environmental destruction to sustainable environmental abundance. That's what permaculture seeks to. And this is what Islam seeks to. So because of the fact that I see it so much Islamically influenced, and so much of what Islam would require from us, to in our stewardship of the earth. So it's a great system that we can use, and rather than inventing the wheel twice, with all of these various aspects that we need to look into in terms of sustainability, it's already been mapped out and tried and tested, and it works. So why not? So Jazakumullah khair, that's what we wanted to present tonight, and tomorrow this environmental health. Generally, it's the last, because from the micro to the macro, but here we're starting from macro to the micro. Okay, however. So hopefully Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts khair in that. And inshallah, how many will be with us tomorrow, inshallah? After doing your homework, inshallah, also, yeah? I'm not going to test you, by the way, don't get frightened, right? For your own benefit, inshallah. I think you'll really enjoy, you'll see amazing things, really, look at that permaculture. See, Jeff Lott, Geoff, he's Australian spelling, English way of spelling, Geoff. Lawton, Lawton, and see some of his YouTube clips, greening of the desert and his various techniques that they use, and the results that they get out of this is phenomenal. Okay, so looking forward to seeing you all tomorrow. How many would bring friends with them? How many would say, okay, I'm going to bring one or two of my friends? Just think about it now. Who was that friend that I can bring, or relative, or whatever? How many inshallah would do that? One hand. Come on, folks, Muslims. Al-mu'min al-qawi, khayru wa habbu ilayhi min al-mu'min al-dhaif. Strong Muslims, strong irada, strong. If we don't, folks, look, if we don't do something about the environment, we won't have a place to be slaves anymore. Think about that. If we don't do something for the environment, we might wake up one day and it's not there anymore. Right? So this is something we really need to be focused on. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us all tawfiq, jazakumullah khair for putting up with my rambling on, and hopefully there was some benefit out of that. And hopefully we'll see you all tomorrow, and hopefully you'll bring your friends and relatives as well. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Jazakallah khairan, Sheikh Hashim, for that amazing and wonderfully insightful presentation. Alhamdulillah. Right before y'all go, I just have a few announcements for tomorrow. We're going to have our full day program from 11 to 5. We're going to break for the prayers. We're going to have a lunch break, and we will have refreshments tomorrow as well, inshallah. We do have a QR code. If you're interested, we'll put it up tomorrow as well, just for donation. Obviously, we are doing this for the community, and so there's no fee or anything, but just to be able to cover the costs for this event. And at the end of the day, the purpose is really to educate the community and help, right? Our community here in MCA. So we're always trying to bring experienced and good speakers to you all so the community can learn, spread goodness. So if you have anything to donate, then please, I have the QR code in the front, inshallah, or we're gonna have it tomorrow as well. Other than that, tomorrow's event, you will have to register online. So we will be checking registration. It closes tomorrow at 10 a.m., 1 hour before the event. So please, please, please make sure you register and send it to your friends and family, like Sheikh Hashim said. It's gonna be very beneficial, inshallah. But other than that, I wish you all a blessed night, and we will close off with the dua. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.